Breaking news, a critical test in the criminal cases against two of President Trump's biggest political foes. A federal judge in Virginia just heard arguments in a bid from James Comey and Letitia James to disqualify prosecutor Lindsay Halligan. Their attorneys argue Halligan was handpicked by President Trump and is serving as interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia unlawfully.
Trump, a man who posts about Diet Coke at 3 a.m., went completely silent for over 2 hours on one of the most legally damaging days of his presidency. That kind of silence from him is not calm. It is the sound of total panic. This was not a blip. This was not a server error. This was a man surrounded by aides frantically discussing the 25th Amendment and senators being forced to stare into the abyss.
Trump, who you can see in these sketches, basically started a sort of a rant. He called the case itself a fraud. He's the one, of course, on trial for fraud. He began attacks on the attorney general and the judge, who then instructed Trump's lawyer, and this just happened today, to, quote, control your client.
The reason for the silence was not a bad poll number or a snub from a foreign leader. It was a direct televised warning from the bench. Imagine being the most powerful man in the world and a judge you cannot remove looks straight into the camera and tells you point blank that your next home could be a federal prison for the rest of your natural life. Life, no parole, no deals.
A defense team. When Donald Trump was a criminal defendant, he had won his case by having the prosecutor Jack Smith tossed off of it in Florida in a set of arguments very similar to this. And Judge Curry is now asking the Justice Department, are you guys against that now?
Let us rewind to the exact moment things escalated. In a federal courtroom, the subject matter was the ongoing probe into the Epstein network and the alleged reach of its connections into the highest corridors of power. This is not ancient history. This is an active investigation into obstruction and witness tampering. On the stand was a witness who had been holding it together, but under the weight of the threats, the secrets, and the fear of what happens if they tell the truth, they broke down completely. They did not just cry, they did not just whisper, they erupted. The words cut through the legal proceedings. Trump gave the order. The room froze. And it was not just words.
In the battle to salvage whatever it is that remains of the rule of law in America, it just may go down as one of those shots heard around the world. And the news wasn't extraordinary because of what he was doing and retiring. It is how he did it. After 40 years on the bench, a federal judge appointed by Ronald Reagan with decades of experience overseeing criminal cases of mobsters and lawmakers alike is retiring from the bench so that he can sound the alarm and take a stand against Donald Trump's assault on the rule of law in America.
The witness collapsed right there in the witness box. A full physical breakdown that no amount of legal argument can spin away. You cannot cross-examine a nervous breakdown. You cannot object to trauma. Judge Emmett Sullivan, a man who has seen just about every flavor of legal maneuvering the courts have to offer, reached his limit. He did not bang the gavel for order. He did not call a quiet sidebar. He stopped the entire proceedings to address the situation directly. Trump was watching this unfold, likely on a screen somewhere in the White House, seeing his legal defense unravel in real time. And Sullivan seized that moment. He spoke not just to the attorneys, but to the man watching the screen. The message was cold, precise, and direct. Interference in this matter does not get you a slap on the wrist. It does not get you house arrest at Mar-a-Lago. Interference means life without the possibility of parole. Life, no parole. No deals. The end. That phrase, life without parole, did not come from a cable news program. It did not come from a Democratic fundraising email. It came from the bench. And what was the reaction from Trump? His aides described him as catatonic, not furious, not combative, frozen, shut down. Because for once, there was no counterpunch. There was no spin. There was only the realization that the law had caught up with him.
Former federal judge Mark L. Wolf writes this in The Atlantic over the weekend, quote, I no longer can bear to be restrained by what judges can say publicly or do outside the courtroom. President Donald Trump is using the law for partisan purposes, targeting his adversaries while sparing his friends and donors from investigation, prosecution, and possible punishment.
The White House was already under enormous pressure before that witness even took the stand. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt was struggling under the strain of defending the administration's position. Cabinet members were openly discussing whether to invoke the 25th Amendment. Republican senators in private meetings were running the numbers and whispering about whether now was the moment they finally took action. According to the evidence laid out in court, there are payments, specific and traceable money flows directed toward Mar-a-Lago. Those financial connections align with a specific set of redactions ordered by Attorney General Pam Bondi. Her office issued directives to black out certain lines, to hide certain names, to make sure the public never saw the full picture. And now the witness was telling the court that the exact content hidden under those redactions is the proof that Trump was not a bystander, but the one who directed a scheme to tamper with people who could implicate him. And then there is Kash Patel. He testified under oath. But according to prosecutors, he did not just misremember, he lied. They are accusing him of perjury, holding his sworn statements up against the evidence on record.
The experience of being threatened is deeply disturbing. Those of us who become federal judges to varying degrees, and maybe me because I came from being a federal prosecutor to a higher degree, understand that it comes with the territory.
When you have a witness collapsing on the stand, screaming about orders, and you have a former official facing contempt charges for what the court considers to be false statements, you do not have a conspiracy theory anymore. You have a conspiracy trial. Judge Sullivan looked at all of this, the redacted files, the suspicious payments, the lies under oath, and the broken witness on the floor of his courtroom, and drew a straight line to the top. If I find out you directed this obstruction, Sullivan was saying, you will spend the rest of your life in federal custody. Now, let us be clear about what this silence means. It is not strategy. It is fear. It means the lawyers have finally gotten through to him. They have shown him the actual statute, 18 U.S. Code Section 1512. That is the witness tampering and obstruction law that carries serious consequences. You interfere with a witness, that is 20 years. You orchestrate a widespread campaign to silence people who can testify against you. That is the rest of your life. And when a judge looks you in the eye and tells you that is what is on the table, even the most defiant person finally understands the gravity of the situation. The silence is the sound of a man realizing the game has changed from political dispute to potential life sentence. The mainstream media was trying to figure out how to cover this carefully. But let us be clear. The judge did not imply anything. The judge issued a direct warning about what happens if the evidence holds. It was based on testimony, on documents, on the kind of concrete evidence that grand juries take seriously. This was not speculation. This was a warning grounded in what has already been presented in court. The day had started like any other in this administration, which meant it was already under pressure. The discussions about the 25th Amendment were louder than the official press briefings. Talks among Republicans about a possible removal vote had moved from theoretical to logistical. Then the Epstein witness took the stand. People need to understand the scope here. This is not a rehash of old flight logs. This is an active investigation into whether the current president of the United States personally engaged in a criminal conspiracy to silence people with knowledge of his potential crimes. That is what is at stake. That is why everyone in Washington was suddenly on edge. So the witness was up there fielding questions from both the prosecution and defense. The cross-examination was brutal. It was designed to break them, and it worked, but not in the way anyone expected. The person did not crumble into a lie. They crumbled into the truth. The agitation built, the voice shook, and then the dam burst. Trump ordered it, and then came the physical collapse. A body hitting the floor of a federal courtroom because the weight of holding that secret was literally too heavy to stand under. That is not theater. That is what happens when a human being is under that level of pressure and fear. And Judge Sullivan, a man who has witnessed the depths of legal proceedings and human behavior, realized the moment was now. He halted the proceedings. He called a recess, and then he addressed Trump directly. Trump was watching remotely, and Sullivan made sure his message was clear. I see you watching, the judge's tone conveyed, and I want you to know the price of what I am seeing in this evidence. Then came the citation, 18 U.S.C. 1512. That is not just a number. That is a statute that can result in a lifetime in federal prison. The response from Trump was 2 hours and 17 minutes of complete silence. No posts, no statements, no responses anywhere. His aides started leaking to the media that he was in some kind of catatonic state, using that exact word. And that is the most alarming part for the White House staff. What do you do when the president goes silent after a federal judge threatens him with life imprisonment? You start preparing for every possible scenario. The silence is the complete opposite of what we have come to expect from Trump. This is a man who responds to everything immediately. A bad headline comes out and he posts about it within minutes. A negative story breaks and he is calling it fake news within the hour. A court decision goes against him and he is speaking out instantly, but this got absolute silence for over 2 hours. That tells you how serious this is. When Trump goes silent like that, it means his lawyers have told him not to say anything. It means anything he says right now could be used against him in court. The prosecutors presented evidence in that courtroom. They cited the Bondi memo. They cited Kash Patel's testimony. Pam Bondi, the attorney general, ordered certain materials to be redacted, covered up, hidden from the public record. And the witness is now saying that those exact materials, the ones that Bondi covered up, are the documents that prove Trump gave direct orders for witness interference. That is how the connection was built. That is why the witness broke down. And Patel testified under oath about some of these events, but prosecutors say he lied. They say he is covering something up. They have contradictions in his testimony. They have evidence that shows his statements do not match the facts. Judge Sullivan watched all of this unfold over the past weeks and months. He watched the administration under pressure. He watched staff struggling. He heard about discussions regarding the 25th Amendment. He read about Republican senators considering removal. And then a witness broke down in his own courtroom and screamed that Trump ordered the witness tampering. That is when the judge decided to make something crystal clear. If this is proven, if the evidence holds up, we are talking about a lifetime sentence. We are not negotiating. We are not looking for a deal. We are talking about life in federal prison. That is what is on the table, and the president responded with silence. That silence means his lawyers told him not to say anything because anything he says right now will be used against him in court. It means his team knows how serious this situation is. It means they are in full damage control mode. It means they are likely already preparing legal strategies and contingency plans for scenarios that were once unthinkable. They are already thinking about how to distance themselves from this situation. And that, more than anything else, tells you everything you need to know about how serious this moment truly is.